Victoria from Biblio Lifestyle, and you're listening to the Reader's Couch podcast, the show that will help you bridge the gap between living a full and busy life to one where you're reading, learning new things, and having fun. Today on the couch, I'm so excited to welcome author Peter Swanson to talk about his novel, A Talent for Murder. In A Talent for Murder, we meet a newly married librarian named Martha, who suspects her husband Alan, a traveling salesman, may be connected to a series of murders across 5 cities. So we see Martha partnering with her old friend Lily to find out what he's up to, but then she discovers other mysterious people are tracking Alan too. In this episode, we talk about Peter's novel, A Talent for Murder. We circle back to his previous books, The Christmas Guest, The Kind Worth Saving, 9 Lives, Every Vow You Break, and 8 Perfect Murders. We also talk about classic mystery authors like Patricia Highsmith, Agatha Christie, Ira Levin, and the horror icon Stephen King. But before we get into the episode, please take a few seconds to subscribe to the podcast so you're the first to know when new episodes are available. Leave me a 5-star rating and write a review if you love the show. And if you have something you'd like to share with me, click the Send Me a Text link in the show's description and let me know what you think about this episode. And if you've read A Talent for Murder or any of Peter Swanson's favorite books, as a matter of fact, if you've read Peter's books, let me know which book is your favorite. Are you a fan of any of these classic authors like Patricia Highsmith, Agatha Christie, Ira Levin, or the iconic Stephen King? Or you can just tell me about the last book you read and loved. So click the Send Me a Text link in the show's description or use Spotify's Q&A feature if you're listening on that platform. So thanks in advance. And now onto the episode with author Peter Swanson. Hi friends, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me to talk about his novel, A Talent for Murder, is author Peter Swanson. Hi Peter, welcome to the Reader's Couch.
Hi Victoria, nice to be here.
Yay, I'm super excited to chat with you about your latest book, A Talent for Murder, but I know this isn't your first rodeo. This is like your 11th book, but how are you feeling about this one?
I feel good. It's shocking to me that it's my 11th book. It went by very fast since I was coming out with my debut, and now I realize that on a lot of panels that I sit on, I'm now the veteran writer there. Yeah, it's strange because I don't feel like a veteran, but I guess I am at this point with 11 books. Yeah, I feel good. It's every book that comes out, I'm grateful for the opportunity to keep doing what I love to do and make a living at it. So I feel incredibly thankful for this career.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so grateful for you that you're writing these books because I really look forward to your work. It definitely keeps me entertained and gives me that escape when I need it. But before I really dissect the book a bit, because I have quite a few questions here, tell us about A Talent for Murder. What can readers expect when they pick up a copy? Essentially, give listeners your elevator pitch.
So the book starts with a character named Martha Ratliff. She is around in her 40s, and she is a librarian who is never married. But she meets someone. She meets a man, and he asks her to marry him, and she does. And he's a sweet guy, but there's something about him that she can't quite put a finger on. She doesn't always know what he's thinking. He travels a lot for work, and when he comes back, sometimes he acts odd, and at one point, she finds what looks like a blood stain on one of his shirts. So she basically does what any good librarian would do, which is start to research him. So she starts to look at the places that he travels and look for crimes in those areas, and she finds some correlations. Quite a few, actually. Maybe not enough to turn him into the police, but enough to arouse her suspicions that there seem to be unsolved murders in towns he has visited. What she does is she contacts an old friend, Lily Kintner, who is also an old friend of mine. She's been in a couple of my books, and she asks for help in finding out what this guy is all about.
So I don't know if you pay attention to pop culture. Maybe you're in your writing clave, but did you hear about this young woman? She went on TikTok and she told a story, and it was entitled, Who the F Did I Marry? And it was like this 50-part series. She was basically telling her true story about her meeting someone, thinking he was one way. She married him despite her better judgment. And fortunately for her, she was able to get divorced. No, he did not kill anyone. But I was just wondering, did you hear about that phenomenon at all? Because when I saw the summary for the book before picking it up, I was like, oh my gosh, is this another one of those when you don't know who you married kind of thing and now you're investigating?
I think it's interesting, and I don't know that specific thing from TikTok, but there are endless stories like this. The ones that always blow me away are the men who have two entirely separate families with kids in different houses, and they somehow live this life. But it does make me think, or I thought a lot about while I was writing this, how we sit as individual humans, we sit with this one perspective our whole life, which is, inside our own heads looking out. And we can become incredibly close to people. But even no matter how close we are to someone, we don't really know what it's like to be in their head and what they're thinking about. And so I was thinking about that in terms of this marriage. Like, she looks at him sometimes and she's just like, I don't know what he's thinking. And it could be bad stuff. It could be just bland stuff. It doesn't matter. But it was one of the things I was exploring. How well can you know someone? I guess is the answer.
Yes, that's truly the question at the heart of this book, I think. And also just in life in general, to your point, because there's some people, they're really masterful at hiding their true selves, but also even bamboozling people who would otherwise be astute. So I think
it's incredible. And I think we're all becoming little masters of this because the social media has really allowed people to create personas for themselves through social media and project a certain image. This isn't necessarily a sinister thing, but it can be. And you hear stories all the time of people who just project an entirely different image than who they really are.
Yeah, and it can be frightening when you find the truth. Needless to say, our main character at the center is Martha. She's a librarian. The traveling salesman husband is Alan, and she ropes in art teacher lady is the one who died.
Yes.
That really caught her attention.
Yes.
And I would be really suspicious because I have a traveling husband, and I would be very suspicious if every town, in every convention and just every situation, someone turns up dead. And every time you come home, you're acting a bit suspicious. That is odd.
I think one of the things when you write thrillers, there are certain things you got to get past. It's like a haunted house story. Like, why don't they leave the house? So the question is, why doesn't she just call the police? But when she's doing this research, it's not every convention. It's every other convention. There seems to be an unsolved crime. And he's going to major cities. Aren't there unsolved crimes all the time in major cities? She's not sure. So I think that's the real quandary of the book in the beginning, which is, if I turn him into the police or say something, I'm wrecking this marriage. And maybe it's just a coincidence. So that's why she gets her friend. She wants a second opinion is essentially what she wants. And Lily had helped her out in this dark situation early on in her life. So she thinks Lily might be the right person to go to. And she probably is.
I know I would for sure call a friend. Whether it's a longtime friend, not so close friend, might be a bit dodgy friend, I would definitely call for help. So that's where Lily comes in. But we also discover that, hey, they're not the only ones watching him.
Yes.
There's also someone else in the shadows seeing what he's up to. And of course, the book just really takes off from there.
Yeah, I wanted it to feel like one type of book when you started and then changed into a different type of book, which I was trying to do a little bit because it is a sort of a common trope, this do you trust your husband? So I hope I throw some good curveballs into the mix.
Yeah, there are a couple in there. Readers, rest assured, this one will be a fun ride. Now, I love classic literature. I still to this day will revisit some that are my absolute favorites, one of which is Patricia Highsmith.
Yeah.
I know they have this new Ripley adaptation out. I want to watch it. I want to revisit the book first before I dive into the series. I know it's two different stories, two different art forms, but it's a bad habit I have. I want to revisit the book before I dive in. With that said, I was really getting Patricia Highsmith vibes in this book. Was this intentional on your part?
Yeah, and there's obviously a nod to the title and A Talent for Murder and The Talented Mr. Ripley, and
Mhm.
it's sort of name dropped there in the book. Yeah, Patricia Highsmith is a huge influence on me. I think at some point in my reading career, I went from sort of Agatha Christie to Patricia Highsmith, both of whom I love, but Agatha Christie, there's a real delineation between who are the villains and who are the non-villains. And then Patricia Highsmith just wipes that board clean. So in her books, everyone's a potential villain. All good people do bad things, bad people do good things. Everyone's in a moral gray area. So I love that about her. And Talented Mr. Ripley is a great example because we really follow this murderer and we're only in his head and behind his shoulder. And it's impossible to not root for him a little as it goes along.
Mhm.
He's your point of view. But there's also something fascinating about this person who creates this false front and then is just willing to do these sort of bad things to keep it up. So there is a character quite like that in this book. And I did think a lot about that book. And I'm similar to you. I did revisit Talented Mr. Ripley quite recently. And then I did watch the new miniseries, which I loved. It's a lot like the book, actually.
Ooh.
It's for people who love the movie with Jude Law and Matt Damon.
Yeah.
Like my wife, I think she was like a little disappointed because first of all, it's not as sexy in some ways, and it doesn't have Jude Law in it at his absolute peak. And I think, but it's a lot more like the book. It's more of a meandering story. You just sink into it, and I quite liked it. So I like both.
Ooh, I'm glad to hear that you watched it and you liked both. I'm really excited for it. I was saving it and I'm really excited to really dive into that one. But kind of going to your writing, this is book 11, which is wild to me. Now, my first book from you was actually 8 Perfect Murders.
Right.
And then I've read every one since.
Okay.
The one before this one was a Christmas kind of novella, which I thought was just brilliant. And I was wondering if you were thinking a Christie for Christmas in the way you did your Christmas Guest, which I know it's different. It's a different story, but I loved having that little holiday treat. Tell me about that one and why you decided to just put a holiday book out.
It was actually a suggestion from my UK editor at Faber, my publisher over there, and he said, "Do you want to write a sort of special standalone Christmas book?" And he gave me a lot of freedom. He said, "You can write a novella," which is, if listeners don't know, novella is a short novel. If a regular novel is about 90,000 words, a novella is often 30,000 words. It's 100 pages. And he said around Christmas time, and I instantly had an idea. And I have to say, like, writing in a novella form was great. It was so refreshing to have a story to tell that I could tell in 100 pages, because you can do different things that in a full-length crime novel, you got to often have subplots and backplots and all this sort of thing. And in 100 pages, you can come up with just sort of one sinister idea and just let that play out. So I really liked that length. I wish there were more opportunities to do that, because I actually think novellas used to be more popular, but nowadays they're not, unless you're Stephen King, who writes lots of them. But he can write whatever he wants and publish it. But anyway, I really enjoyed writing it. I love that it's a type of book you could sit down and read in one evening, almost in the time it would take to watch a movie. And I'm hoping to do another one.
I hope you do another one too. And I thought it was just perfect for the holiday season, because it tends to be a bit chaotic, but you want that little mini escape. And that's what that book provided for me over the holiday break, the Christmas Guest. That was really good. Now, I think Lily Kittner, now you're going to have to correct me because I'm not 100% sure, but I was thinking she was in The Kind Worth Saving, with
Correct.
The book about the husband and this private eye, and, got twisty back to the wife in a way. Am I correct in that was a Lily Kittner book?
Yes, she's in that. But her first book is previous to 8 Perfect Murders. So that's The Kind Worth Killing, which was my second novel. And that's the introduction to Lily Kittner. So at this point, she's been in 3 books.
Oh, okay. Oh, cool. So you also had 9 Lives, which I'm a big Agatha Christie fan. 9 Lives was essentially a nod to the famous And Then There Were None.
Yeah.
Tell me about your decision to go down that rabbit hole.
And Then There Were None is really my favorite mystery novel of all time. And I read it quite young, and it's haunted me ever since. Like, the whole idea of 10 strangers being invited to an island and then getting killed off one by one is just so brilliant, because there's so many mysteries at work. First of all, who's doing this? And it's one of them, because there's no one else on the island. So who's doing it? But why are they doing it? And what do these people have in common. So I've always wanted to do my own version of the story, but you're wading into territory that's become a bit of a cliche, trapped on an island, trapped at a ski resort in a snowstorm. So I had this idea, what if they weren't trapped? What if it was 10 people who were brought together just because they all received a letter in the mail? And the letter in the mail is a list of names and their name is on it. And then those people on that list begin to get killed off one by one. In a weird way, they wind up on their own kind of virtual island, which is they're marked for death, and they don't know what the connection is between them. So that's where I came at this story. How could I do this story where they're not trapped in an isolated location, but they feel equally scared? And I think that's, what I was going for on that. And then I made sure to include lots of Agatha Christie references.
Yes.
In the course of the book as well.
And I love that because, again, I'm a huge Agatha fan. The other book I read from you was Every Vow You Break. That was like a honeymoon gone wrong. And that one was really fun. But I have to go back to my first one. And I feel sometimes when you read a book and it's the first book by a particular author, you'll forever remember that one. For me, with Agatha Christie, it was A Body in the Library. I will not forget. So for you, it was Eight Perfect Murders. That was a very first book of yours that I read. And I thought it was brilliant, not just because I'm a fan of all the authors and the books that you integrated in this story, because we get Agatha Christie in this one. We get Patricia Highsmith, who I absolutely love. We even get Ira Levin and just so much more. So I thought that was great. It felt almost like a celebration in a way of all of fiction's great writers who've written brilliant murders and mystery thrillers and all that. So tell me about your decision to bring all these folks together in this one book.
It's funny. I think we'll tell the story. Most of my books are written. I come up with a germ of an idea and then I work it out. And then I often start it without knowing how it's all going to play out. And this book was different because this book dropped into my lap. I actually know where I was. I was taking a walk around a pond just on an afternoon. And I was writing a short story at the time and I needed a sort of a clever murder concept in that story. So I started to think to myself, what are other clever murder concepts? Strangers on a Train, where you swap a murder, or Double Indemnity, where you've killed the person already and then someone imitates them and so it looks like they're still alive. I was trying to go through these and then all of a sudden I said, what if someone made a list of the best crimes in fiction? And then I instantly thought, and what if someone else took this list and started to use it to kill people themselves? And within an hour, I think maybe an hour and a half, I knew who wrote the list. I knew who was doing the killings. I knew why. I knew my setting. I knew how it would end. And I knew almost half the books on the list. Like, it just was all there, ready to go, which is it's great, but it was also terrifying because I still had to go home and write it. And that takes a long time. But yeah, it just felt like it was all there. And then, it had the best research of any book I've done, which was just rereading my favorite crime novels and then really delving into what it means to be a reader, which I think for the main character in that book, for Malcolm, he's so identified as someone who found books at a young age and fell in love with them and in his journey as a reader, along with his journey as part of this murder mystery. So there are a lot of elements of me in that book, not the creepy murder mystery stuff, but the reading stuff for sure. And I think it's a special book for me for that reason as well.
And I think readers connected with it because I feel we felt seen as well. And we connected with you writing the novel because clearly you're a reader as well and you love the books and just these amazing stories that have been written before. So it felt like, a great homage to all these fabulous stories, but also to us readers who just read and love and appreciate them, because I'm one of those people, and it's weird to some, but some people get it, where I want to revisit these books because I just love them so much. And I wanted to see, okay, why did this work? But also, how do I feel now? And just all that. Yeah.
I'm a big rereader too. And I think similar to you, my preference in reading is dead author books. I love reading. Nothing makes me happier than finding like a crime writer from 100 years ago that I haven't discovered and fall in love with one of their books and then just be able to have all their books and find out about their lives. And I just read from the past. And I obviously do some contemporary reading too, but I'm really in love with classic crime fiction. And it started really young because I used to go to the used bookstore in my town, and they had all these old paperbacks that you could get really cheap. And they all had these great covers, Agatha Christie, and then the pulpy stuff from the 50s and 60s. where the covers were always more exciting than the books.
Yeah.
A great guy with a gun and a half-dressed girl. And it was like, I'm this 14-year-old boy, so I'm like, oh, this looks amazing. So I just love the promise that a book holds. So yeah, I'm glad I got that across in that book.
Yeah, it was very well received. And again, fortunate for me, that was my first. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reading everything this man writes. This was just great, because I think readers can tell when all writers are also just crazy about the books they read and they're just in love with them as much as we do. And I felt it really came through. So on the note of being a reader, I want to get some book recommendations from you.
All right.
So tell me about some of your favorite mystery and thriller books that you've read.
Yeah, so for all time, first of all, A Kiss Before Dying by Ira Levin. Have you read this one, Victoria?
Yes.
So Ira Levin, who's great, who's known for, of course, Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, and he tended to write books with a supernatural edge to them, or a sci-fi edge. But his very first book was a straight-up crime thriller called A Kiss Before Dying, about a sociopathic killer and his relationship with three sisters. Love that book. We've already mentioned it, but Talented Mr. Ripley is probably my pick for my favorite Patricia Highsmith book.
Same.
I love it. It's like time traveling back to Italy in the early 1960s. All her books have that element, which is they meander a little. So there's like a lot of sitting in coffee shops and having cocktails with your friends. And I love a book like that. It's just like time travel. Another big one is Double Indemnity by James M. Cain. I think it's a classic kill the husband novel, but it has, to me, I think, the most chilling last couple chapters of a mystery novel. It goes places. As much as I love the movie, the book does things that the movie couldn't at that time in terms of the sickness of this relationship. So I love that book. And I'll say one more, a little different, but I do get an occasional serial killer procedural book, and I think my favorite is really Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, which is just such a great book. Silence of the Lambs is great too, but before that he wrote Red Dragon, which introduces Hannibal Lecter, but is really about a serial killer called Francis Dollarhide. And that is one stay up all night book.
Ooh, see, I haven't read that one, so now I'm interested.
It's so good. It's so good. And I stole a little from Red Dragon for Talent for Murder. Like this sort of, there's a point at which in Red Dragon, the book just veers and gives you the whole story of Francis Dollarhide from childhood on up. And I took that moment in Talent in my new book.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, that's exciting. All right, so we both love Christie. So tell me your top 5 Christie books.
Yeah, and then There Were None we've been talking about is really my favorite, and that's really my favorite mystery novel of all time. My other ones, for whatever reason, for Poirot, I've always loved Death on the Nile. I think I saw that film when I was quite young. I love that story. I love it more than Orient Express, which is his most famous. I think it's really devious, the murder story in that one. So Death on the Nile. I love Crooked House, which is one maybe people don't know as well. It has one of the best reveals of the killer sections ever. Like my jaw fell open. She's the best at plotting a crime novel.
She's amazing.
None. I love Murder of Roger Ackroyd for its very clever idea. And then for my odd one out, it was a late book she wrote called Endless Night, which is, I think it came out in like the 70s. It's very different than her other books, but it's very gothic and haunting, and I love that book.
Awesome. Stephen King. You're also a fan of Stephen King. So tell me your top 5 from King.
It's so hard with Stephen King. There's so many good ones, but I'm going to go my top 5. The Stand, just because it has everything. It's so amazing. Misery, which is the best story about a writer. I love that one. And I love Annie Wilkes. I have to say On Writing, which is his book about being a writer. And as a writer, like that book really pushed me over the wall to turn me into a writer. So amazing. The Dead Zone, I've always loved that one. And for recent ones, I loved 11/22/63, about the man who finds the time portal and decides to go back and stop JFK from being killed. It's a big book, and it's a thriller, but it's also just like a sweet rumination on life, like just amazing.
As you're getting near the end there, I'm like, is he going to say 11/22/63? Because I love that one. I thought for recent, it was brilliant.
Yeah. What a like entering another world. It was a really beautiful book.
Yeah, he did a really great job. Okay, so childhood book that you can remember, but then also tell me about some new books you're looking forward to reading in the year ahead.
So childhood books, prior to getting into adult books, which happened quite young, I loved anything by Roald Dahl. I liked the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James and the Giant Peach, his sort of sensibility, which was quite dark, I loved. And I loved a book called The House with a Clock in Its Walls by John Bellairs, which was a ghost supernatural story that I think is still hanging around. People still occasionally read it. I love those books. I just read the new Dennis Lehane, Small Mercies, which was great. I thought it was about a mom in the 1970s during the busing crisis in Boston. Her daughter goes missing, and she becomes the sort of default detective searching for her missing daughter. Totally great book by him. And I just read a book that I don't think is out yet in the United States. It's called The In Crowd by Charlotte Vassell. So Charlotte Vassell is a young writer in the UK. She wrote a book called The Other Half, and this is called The In Crowd. And she's really great at writing detective stories that are about the sort of swath of life in London, from the sort of higher upper echelon posh people and the underseen world of poverty in London. She just can do both, which is amazing. So I love that book, The In Crowd.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. I have to check that one out. So we also love indie bookstores on our show because we love independent booksellers. We really appreciate the work that they do. So share with our listeners some of your favorite local indies.
Now I'm up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. So my favorite local indie up here is The Bookstore. It's in Gloucester, Mass. And it's a great little indie. And then I'll also shout out Harvard Bookstore in Harvard Square. It sounds like it's associated with Harvard University. It's not. It's been a long-standing indie, and I did a reading there last night for Talent for Murder, and it's really a classic, great bookstore.
Awesome. Getting back to A Talent for Murder and just wrapping things up, it's clear, again, you love books and reading, which is always fabulous. I love when we have authors who love books as much as we do. And we do get the nod to a talented Mr. Ripley in here. We have a woman who's trying to find out if she really knows the man she married. She has her friend, Lily, that she ropes in to help along the way. And we have some twists and turns to look forward to ahead. But what are you hoping readers might think or feel after they've turned the very last page of A Talent for Murder?
That's a good question. For one, I just hope they've been entertained and surprised. I think surprise, it doesn't necessarily have to be massive twists, but all crime novels should have some surprises to them in the way things are revealed. I hope, and in particular in this book, I hope you walk away with all these things, plus feel a little bit chilled by the ending, because I do think it has hopefully a chilling end.
I think it does. And Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you so much for listening to the Reader's Couch podcast. Please subscribe to the show, share it with a friend, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Until next time, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks again for listening, and happy reading.